Business means we welcome Yuka Roy to the studio. Good evening to you. Great to see you.
Hey, Mark.
Donald Trump warning that a whole civilization will die if Iran doesn't open up the Strait of Hormuz before his deadline. Gulf countries, as you'd expect, on the edge.
Well, Mark, with just hours to go before that deadline, a Qatari official issued a series of warnings, especially against attacks on civilian and energy infrastructure by any party. This as the US and Israel struck more Iranian targets today. Shipping data showed that 2 Qatari tankers carrying liquefied natural gas that were headed towards the Strait of Hormuz abruptly made a U-turn and headed back home on Monday, reportedly halted by Iran's Revolutionary Guard. Qatar is the world's top supplier of LNG, responsible for about a fifth of global demand. It was forced to shut down production at its Ras Laffan plant, the world's largest, after an Iranian attack last month. Had the tankers passed, it would have marked the country's first LNG export since the war began. A foreign ministry spokesperson said the conflict was approaching a point where it would spiral out of control.
We have been warning since 2023 that escalation left unchecked will get us into a situation where it cannot be controlled. And we are very close to that point. There are no winners in the continuation of this war. There are only losers, and the net of losers is expanding every day as a result of the ramifications of the economic situation.
Crude oil prices fluctuating ahead of Trump's deadline.
Well, the US's West Texas Intermediate went above $116 a barrel earlier this Tuesday, but has since come off the day's high. The North Sea Brent, the international benchmark, is traded at around $109 a barrel. Now, since last Thursday, when the WTI surged 12%, the spread between Brent and WTI has reversed this trend, and traders are also paying higher premiums on US crude with an earlier delivery date. This is a market dynamic known as backwardation. And actual oil prices that refiners are paying have risen to record levels. With supply from the Middle East disrupted, European and Asian refiners are paying nearly $150 a barrel for certain types of crude, far above the benchmark prices, as competition for supply has helped drive up the prices of replacements for more immediate delivery, Mark.
And we're also starting to experience shortages of fuel, petrol, diesel, the like, at the pump at service stations here in France.
Yeah, the government said on Tuesday that 18%, so nearly 1 in 5 petrol stations, were facing supply shortages. But according to energy officials, it's not directly due to the supply crunch from the war, but rather stemming from a decision by oil major Total Energy to freeze fuel prices, keeping them below those of its rivals. This has caused a run on its petrol stations, straining supply. But fuel prices have surged over the past month, especially for diesel. And the reason why this heavier oil is affected more by the ongoing crisis is rooted in France's past economic policies. Brian Quinn explains.
In northern France, where public transport is limited, getting around without a car is nearly impossible, and many of them run on diesel. With prices at the pump on the rise, many families are cutting back on driving to save money.
We used to go to the pool on Wednesdays, not anymore. We go out to eat maybe once a month.
The rise of nuclear power plants in France during the 1970s and 80s put the country's fuel oil refiners into crisis. To avoid a collapse of the industry, the French government encouraged the adoption of diesel-powered cars and heavily subsidized the fuel itself. By the early 2000s, some 80% of France's private cars ran on diesel. But amid increasing awareness of diesel's heavy contribution to air pollution and a major gap in public finances, the country's budget watchdog in 2013 called for an end to special tax breaks on the fuel. These days, French gasoline supplies are nearly 100% refined domestically, but more than half the country's diesel is imported, making it more susceptible to supply shocks. The result, prices at the pump have risen much faster for diesel than for gasoline. 48% of the French public still drive diesel cars, but with the average cost of a litre now above €2.30, many are considering a change. After 20 years on diesel, this family is now shopping for a hybrid.
The price of fuel plus maintenance, it's just too expensive to have a diesel car now.
It's a big investment, though. and one that could take years to pay off.
Now, if there is a country that's reaping the benefits of the Iran war, it's Russia.
Yeah, indeed, prices of Russian crude have jumped since the start of the war. Moscow is seeing new opportunities to sell not just its oil and gas, but other commodities as well. Luke Schrager explains.
After years of seeing prices for its energy frozen by international sanctions, it seems Russia could be about to see a spring thaw in its resources sector, thanks to the US and Israel's war on Iran.
The market and market conditions in the field of energy and energy resources have completely changed. There's a huge number of requests for the purchase of our energy resources from alternative directions.
With energy prices continuing to rise the longer the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, ensuing fuel costs are battering nations around the world, leaving countries to mitigate the fallout from the conflict as best they can. Those more exposed to the energy shock, particularly in Asia, are now seeking alternate options. Nations like Vietnam, Thailand, the Philippines, Indonesia and Sri Lanka have all approached Moscow for oil. Russia is the world's second largest crude exporter after Saudi Arabia, producing some 10 million barrels a day, despite looking set to cut some capacity following Ukrainian strikes on its energy infrastructure. Even so, it could be set to make up for the loss of one of its major energy markets in Europe, with the European Union set to embargo its gas from next year.
We stand by our ban on buying Russian gas. We should never repeat the mistakes of the past, allowing Putin to weaponize energy against us and blackmail member states of the European Union.
It's not just oil and gas Russia could find new markets for either. With petrochemical exports from the Middle East suffering too, its Prime Minister indicated on Monday that other exports like urea, sulfur and helium could all bring in new revenue.